I'm betting that there is going to be a recession rather soon, and I'm pretty sure that it'll be within the next 2 years. My reasoning is, I think I have a number of rather well-grounded claims of evidence. The first claim that I have in support of my argument is that the record time for the longest time between recessions, from the end of one to the beginning of the next, is 10 years. But it has been 11 years since the last recession in 2008. And so that makes me think that a recession is going to happen rather soon. Another reason that I might think that a recession is going to happen is just because recessions usually happen much more frequently than they have been recently. For example, the average time in the United States between the end of one recession and the beginning of the next is, it's about 3 to 5 years as an average. It's not all that long, at least for counting historical data for the past 200 plus years. It's not that long between recessions. You can also tell, just kind of have a good guess of when one recession is going to end and the next one's going to begin, because the duration and the magnitude of the recession are usually they're kind of similar to the one that happened last. Not 100%, but usually in that ballpark range. And since the last recession was 10 years apart from the one before, we're going to see something that's about 10 the next time. And we had a rather large recession the time before, so we're probably going to have another rather large recession this time. If you look at charts of historical data, you usually see that you have a whole bunch of little recessions, and then maybe a big recession, and then maybe another big recession, and then a whole bunch of little ones. It's not usually, one big one, then one small one, then one big one, then one small one. They're usually pretty closely grouped together by size, and then they're pretty closely together grouped by economic shrinkage, at least on the larger time scale. Another reason why I think that there's going to be a recession rather soon is that there is going to be about a 7% per year growth on average in the economy over the next 10 or 20 years. And I know that because that's how it's been for the past over 100 years in the United States. If you take any 20-year block of time and you take the average increase in the economy, whether you want to measure it by GDP or just pick a few hundred random stocks or whatever, the average economic growth is about 7.5% per year. And you can pick any 20-year block just about, and it'll pretty consistently come out to be about about 7.5% per year. And you can do the same thing with 10-year blocks, though it's not quite as consistent. It's definitely comes pretty close. So that works out to be about a doubling in size of economy over 10 years, which is quite a lot. But over the past decade or so, we've had maybe 10 to 11% increase in the economy per year. So, if we're going to have, uh, you know, consistent growth, which I suspect we will because it's been fairly consistent over the past century or so, uh, it makes a lot of sense for there to be just kind of a downward trend, a recession, and economic shrinkage, whatever you want to call it, coming up rather soon, just to go and compensate for the rather uh, unusually good economic success that the United States has had over the past 10 or 11 years. The way that recession is going to go, the economic shrinkage, is just is going to be kind of short and to the point. If you look at graphs of the economy measured by GDP or S&P 500 or whatever, you can see that every time the economy goes down, it's usually a spike that takes less than a year, and I don't think I've ever seen a recession last for more than 5 years. On that graph, the biggest one is definitely 30s. So I would be very, very surprised if it took any longer than 5 years for the recession to happen. And if it's going to take, a year or two, which it probably will, for all the for the recession to finish happening, then you're going to see, a decrease in economic prosperity rather than just, it kind of flatlining for a while. Because you just that doesn't really happen, and we have data to show that it doesn't happen. I'll probably edit some up here or somewhere. So I really doubt that we'll just have the economic growth be very consistently 4% year after year for the next decade. I just don't think that's going to happen. You see the economy kind of rises, or it's backwards, so rises and then falls and then rises and then falls and then rises and falls in a very distinct pattern. There's a plateau. There's a rise and then a plateau, and then it goes down a little bit and then it rises again. And you can see that the plateau is proportional in length to the rise, and that's proportional to the fall, all of those being proportional time-wise. And then the actual change in economic growth is proportional on the rise and on the fall. And you can see that in S&P 500 or a change in GDP per capita graph. And you can use that to get a pretty good idea of how big the recession will be and how long it will last and what time it will take. And I'm gonna say maybe it's probably gonna last for about a year or two, and it's we're gonna have some economic shrinkage. It's probably gonna be somewhere between a 5 to 15% decrease over the time that the recession happens. A, because that's what's happened historically, and B, because it matches kind of the time that we've had for the economic prosperity and the amount of prosperity that we've had in that time. So I hope all that makes sense, and definitely let me know what you think on the matter.